Hey, I'm Sion, an American living in Kazakhstan, and this is These Are My People. Each episode, I sit down with one friend to talk about where they want to be 10 years from now, what drives them, and the plans they're making to get there. We'll also dive into one interesting topic. These are ordinary people with ordinary dreams. Hi guys, and welcome to These Are My People. This week on These Are My People, I've coaxed another one of my givers of life into coming on the podcast. So Dad, welcome to the podcast. Dad can speak for about an hour by himself without being interviewed, just long rambling. So I've told him not to do
Rambling.
that. Yes, I've told you not to do that. But Dad, people say I look 50-50 like you and Mom in both my appearance, in both my personality. What do you think I got from you in both appearance and personality?
Genetic makeup would be your physicality, your looks, you're tall, you're thin, that's a Vine's trait.
Okay.
Probably your stubbornness came more from your mom's side of the family.
Yeah, that's true.
Sense of adventure would have come from me though.
From you? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And maybe not from my family, but from me personally. And then athleticism from me.
You think I'm athletic?
Somewhat, yeah. Somewhat. I think if you found the right sport, that you would excel in it. It might be swimming, it's something, but there's some running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
You improved quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and you run well. That's not something the Vines family did, but they were athletic.
Okay.
Your hand-eye is good, which is why you picked up golf, even though you hardly ever play it. It's the reason you can at least make contact with the ball.
Okay, I'm sure my softball coach from high school might argue with you on my good hand-eye
Well, you've never
coordination.
played before, so
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so Dad, for part of your job, you have to tell stories. Why is it that people are so drawn to stories and to storytelling?
Well, I think there are two reasons. Number one, anytime you're trying to express a truth of any kind, you're trying to get a point across. If the narrative or the storytelling is as old as humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way things begun.
Mm-hmm.
Even before there was language, there was the writing of story on cave walls.
Yeah.
You would communicate ideas, concepts, even culture through writing of some kind. But the writing was not just symbols, it was storytelling. Even some of the most ancient and older cultures today still tell a story through script rather than through oral traditions.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people in the affluent West are so used to being entertained that if you try to just dispense information, it'd be difficult. But yeah, the storytelling is a powerful tool to get a point across, and it's been around since ancient times.
So for you, the reason people are drawn to stories is not so much because it's entertaining, but because it's easier to understand and easier to get a point across.
Absolutely, we're spoiled. We are a listening, watching generation. The generations before us were always a reading generation. You read for entertainment, and you read a lot. Some of the greatest thinkers, past presidents, past influencers were avid readers, and they were influenced by what they read. Now people are influenced by what they see, storytelling, and hear.
I was thinking even just yesterday that I think the art of storytelling, especially in the West, is becoming a lost art. Coming to Kazakhstan, they're bigger storytellers than we are in the West. And I remember moving here and I felt like people were expecting more of a story from me, but I felt like I was lacking in my storytelling skills.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, the more affluent you become, the more entertained you become by sight and by feel, the shallower your stories become.
Yeah.
It's true, because you don't have to think deeply through them. If you think about it, some of the greatest works in literature and even some of the greatest artists are of the past. We're just remaking things.
Yeah.
We're trying to be creative, but we're really recreating things that have already been established beforehand. The world is absent of the great poets. Think about it. Who are the modern day great poets? Who are the modern day script writers? Who are the modern day historians? We're just repeating. In some ways, we're deconstructing and reconstructing history to make it say what we want it to say. But the great thinkers of the past, I hope that they return. It'll be difficult to return though, because as I said before, we don't read and think. and we definitely don't think critically like we used to.
Yeah. I know there's a lot on social media, and it compares the cartoons of my childhood, of your childhood, how they had some kind of deeper meaning in it than compared to the cartoons of today's children. And they're stupid. They're just to get children to do some, I don't know, to laugh a bit or do some flashes to keep them entertained. Whereas ours were maybe a little bit slower, but they had some meaning into them.
Absolutely.
And I think often the children didn't get the meaning, right?
Even like Charles Schultz, who wrote the Charlie Brown series. There was a Charlie Brown cartoon in every day, and it was basically some deep philosophical meaning.
Yeah, that's true.
Beetle Bailey was another. I don't know if you'll remember.
I don't know who
Beetle
that is.
Bailey was pretty popular in the 70s and 80s, and there was always some kind of deeper meaning that made you sit back and think for a moment. But not today. You're right.
Yeah. What is the most powerful story you've heard?
The most powerful story I've heard, other than the story of the gospel, would be the story of the prodigal son. Okay. And here's why. You not only find the story of the prodigal son in Christianity or Christian literature, you basically find that story in every religious literature, but it's just told differently.
Yeah.
So Jesus is not telling a real story. He's telling a parable.
Right.
And that parable was very popular, only his take on the parable is totally different than any other take. For instance, let's take the telling of the prodigal son in Buddhism. In Buddhism, the prodigal son can't come home until he works off his debt.
Oh, wow.
He's got to come back and make payment and restitution before the father receives him in.
Yeah.
Hinduism even has its own version, but it's more of gods and goddesses. But the same thing, there must be a day of reckoning, there must be repayment, there must be restitution, there must be some form of restoration or ransom, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's only Jesus that tells the story of the prodigal son, where the father runs out on the road to meet the son, and all he wants is for the son to turn his heart toward home. And the father doesn't say, okay, you're welcome back, but now you got to do this, this, and this. No, you're received back, forgiven of everything instantly.
Yeah.
And that's why the story of the prodigal son by the way, it's one of the most popular stories in culture, any culture.
Any culture, yeah. For those of you that don't know, just a quick recap about the prodigal son. It's a son who wants to take his inheritance from his father, but his father's still alive. He decides to take his inheritance. He goes away. He spends it all. He gambles. Then he's living in poverty and decides, maybe if I go home, my father will forgive me. And what does he say? Maybe I can work.
Maybe I can even go back and be a slave.
Yeah, slave, to work for my father. But when he comes back, his father is so happy to see him. His father runs out with open arms to see him and greets him without saying, as Dad said, anything.
He puts the father's robe on him. He puts the father's ring on him. He puts sandals on his feet. In other words, he says, you're accepted as a full son.
Yeah, that's a powerful story for sure. What's the difference? As I said, you tell stories as part of your job. What's the difference between speaking to inform and speaking to transform? Yeah,
when you're informing, you're dispensing information. So what you're trying to do is get people to see that here is a truth or a concept, and you're gonna deliver it from different angles, but you're still just dispensing information. The greatest teacher of all time, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, is Jesus. And Jesus very seldom dispensed information. He gave stories and parables because he knew that the story and parable would get the point across better than just dispensing information, or he would put his audience in a place of tension. In other words, he would put them in a situation that forced them to think, to open up within their own assumptions, and see that their way of thinking was the old grid. There's got to be a new grid. You got to have your eyes open. This is the way the world really is. It's not the way you think. So when I'm speaking to inform, there are times I'll just dispense a lot of information. But there are other times when I'll say, you know what, now it's time to tell some stories, and hopefully it will solidify and help the story to go down deep into your thinking so that you won't forget it.
Yeah. So when you're telling these stories and when you're speaking to people, you have to know who you're speaking to, right? In order to know how to speak for transformation, in order to get your point across, not only just people, but you have to know cultural context, you have to know age, you have to know all the things about the people who are listening in order to best get this concept across. Over the years, you've been doing your job now for 40 years. What have you learned about human nature over these 40 years?
Human nature is very good at rationalization.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We are the best at rationalizing that, okay, we're okay. I mean, I hear what he's saying, but I'm okay.
Right.
But that would really apply to a friend of mine,
right,
or my neighbor, but I'm okay. And so when you're talking to an audience that you know is typically going to live in denial, because we all do.
right.
That's not a judgment call. We all do. When I'm sitting and listening to somebody, I'm also rationalizing. I'm also in denial. It's just what we do. I try to put them in a situation where suddenly it's kind of like you tell them the story, you lead them along, and then right at the end they realize, oh man, that is me.
Oh.
So it's not bait and switch. It's more of a delay. I forget the method. There's a name for it, but you're delaying the punchline till as long as you can, so that by the time you give it, the light comes on and the person will say, oh, that is me.
So they relate more and more to it as the story comes on, and then they realize. Yeah,
they'll say, this is true about my friend. This is true about our neighbors. This is true about him. I mean, wait a minute, this is true about me.
Yeah.
And that takes years of practice to know how to do that, so that you don't let the cat out of the bag too soon.
What about your view of humans or people? How has your view of people changed over the last 40 years?
Well, I think that number one, I realize that we're very much the same, no matter what culture you're in. So we've lived in Africa, and we've lived in New Zealand, and we've visited a lot of places in Europe, and I've found that no matter where you go, that we're all the same. We all are looking for significance. We want to matter. We all want to achieve something in our lives. We all want to be considered worthy, of life and air. And ultimately we want to be, however we define it, we want to be successful. Each culture defines that, but still, the bottom line is we want to be successful. People are the same wherever you go. And I'll tell you something else that is the same in every culture that you learn, is that there is a sense of shame and honor, not only in the East, but also in the West. It is important how we're seen to others.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're driven by that.
Oh, absolutely.
And that kind of drivenness can drive you absolutely insane, because while you're so busy worrying about what other people think of you, they're not thinking about you at all. They're thinking about themselves and how you think about them. So what the world needs more than anything is peace in themselves first. And you can't discover that peace in yourself until you discover that you are at peace with God.
Yeah.
And when you discover that you're at peace with God, and that you are significant in His eyes, and that there's a way of acceptance to Him, then I always say it like this: until you can get along with God, you won't be able to get along with each other.
Right. That leads perfectly into what I wanted to talk about next. I was going to ask you, what's something you feel like all people are looking for? You answered that question. So,
but ultimately, hope, Sion. Hope. Is it going to ever get any better? Because even though you do achieve things in this world, you do live with this overarching sense that you will die one day. And the older you get, the more you realize life is temporary. And you can block it out and you can try to fool yourself. But you will come to a time when you realize it's all sort of in vain.
Right.
Because you're going to lose it all. So unless you have hope of something that happens next, and that hope is objective, not just a feeling, you'll struggle in your life as you get older. And you'll be old and bitter rather than old and peaceful.
Well, I guess you're just answering all my questions without me even answering the questions.
Well, those questions, that's another thing you inherited from your father, the line of questions.
The line of questions. I was going to ask you, why is it impossible to get this hope or purpose, significance without God?
Yeah.
So you said, right, that everything is fleeting, everything's going to go away. And it's obvious that God, whether it be any kind of God, right? The idea of God is the only thing that's able to be outside time, outside space, the only thing that can be not fleeting. So that makes sense that God is the only answer to this seek of hope, this seeking. But why is God the answer to the seeking of significance, the seeking of purpose? Why is He the only answer that we can have?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's go back. And here's the way I like to say it. How can you fill an eternal void with temporary means? So the void that you feel in you is one that's eternal, because you know that whatever you achieve, it's not going to last.
Right.
Now, like I said, you can develop coping mechanisms to block that out of your mind. Remember I talked about rationalization?
Yeah.
But you'll come to a point in your life when you recognize it's all going to end. So that means that the void you feel is you're looking for something that lasts, that's built to last, that will never end, that will always be.
Yeah.
And the only entity that will always be is something that's not been created.
Right.
And the only thing that's not been created is God.
Right.
And some people say, well, that's your God. Well, hold on, let's just talk about God in general for a minute.
Yeah.
By definition, God is self-existing.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody created God, he would not be God.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for is something to fill this loss of eternality in you. So what you have to do is you have to find the God that really exists for eternity. And that's where you begin. So when if you're willing to begin that journey, then you start asking the questions of, okay, who is God? Has he revealed himself? And can I get in touch with him? Can I have a relationship with him? And is there something that's happened in the past that would give me security in the future? Those are the questions you have to ask.
And just to clarify, we don't want to, of course, people have happiness in I get happiness in eating ice cream outside, right? I feel significance at my work when somebody praises what we do, right? So it's possible to get purpose, significance, happiness temporarily. So the difference that we're talking about here is the difference between temporary hope, temporary significance, happiness versus eternal, something that's lasting, as you said, something that's not fleeting, not something that's going to go away, or situationally based.
So how do you get a centralized joy with sorrow only being peripheral? So that means that you're still going to have moments of sorrow, but it's only on the side if you've got a centralized joy.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can get a centralized joy is to know that you're good for eternity.
Right.
To know that you're never going to die, that you're going to live forever, and that life gets better, not worse, or is not the same. And so you have to ask the question, where can I find that? And that's why, just as a Christ follower, the reason that he's my answer is because he's the only one that died and came back from the dead.
Right.
If the resurrection of Jesus is true, then I want to attach my life to the one who is eternal. And not the one who may be eternal, but the one who has proven he's eternal by defeating death. And that's why Christ followers follow Christ.
Yeah. So, Dad, you're a leader. And not only by personality, by character, but also from your job, from what you do, from the opportunities you've had. And in different situations, not obviously to the same extent as you have, I've been a leader at some points in my life. And what I notice about being a leader is it's great. I love to be a leader. I love to have I love to be able to organize people to work together. But sometimes as a leadership, you can also have negatives, right? For example, I remember in university, I was the lead student worker where I was working, so in charge of the other student workers. But because of that, because of the leadership position, I felt like I had a bit of distance between me and the people around me who could potentially be my friends because they viewed me as more of a leader. For me, in college, you want to make friends, you want to be more social. What for you do you feel like is the cost of leadership, or maybe some difficulties that come into your life because of a leadership position?
Loneliness.
Loneliness.
Absolutely. You described it well. There is always going to be somewhat of a distance between you and others. You can have deep relationships, but those deep relationships will be outside of the people you're leading. And those deep relationships will be more meaningful to you because you can be yourself around them. But there is a cost to leadership. There's a great cost to it. But leadership is a calling and it's an equipping. Some people are born leaders. You're a born leader. In this case, it's not a choice you made. You're wired to lead. You can't just be part of the pack. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not narcissistic to be a leader. It's a narcissistic leader is a horrible thing. Those are the Hitlers of the world. But a leader who's a servant leader who really genuinely wants people to be successful, wants to lead them into the path of success, is a great leader. But there is a cost. And what leaders find is when they do try to become vulnerable with those they're leading, often they'll be taken advantage of. And after they've been burned a few times, they're a little bit wary of doing that again. And that's the cost. The cost is loneliness.
Yeah. Well, I have two more questions for you. These are easy questions. First one, what do you want to be remembered for?
I would say that I would like to be remembered as someone who divided, that might not be a good word, but who proclaimed and explained the scriptures well.
Oh, okay.
When I'm dead, let's see what Jeff Vine said about that. He seemed to have a good understanding of what Jesus taught in the parables or the book of Revelation or whatever,
Well, for the record, yesterday on the golf course, you said, I just want to be the best father, pastor, golfer, and that's it. So that's a little bit different than what you said yesterday on the golf course.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to be remembered for primarily. But obviously, you want to be remembered being a good father, a good leader, all those things. Yeah.
Well, the last question is, I want to ask you if you could say one thing to the next generation shortly. What would you say to the next generation?
Be yourself.
Be yourself.
Do not try to be somebody else. It's wise to listen to those who are successful in your area, but do not try to conform to them. You will be miserable. Be yourself and be proud of who you are. Be proud that you relate and you communicate the way you do. Don't try to change it.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's it for this episode of These Are My People. Thanks for listening in. And if you've got any questions for my father, or last week I interviewed my mother, feel free to send your questions and I'll have them answer in the next few weeks that I'm with them. Thanks so much and see you next time.